What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're actually talking about probably one of my most controversial videos all year. Which one is better, the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5? I do this video every year. If you watch my videos, you will see that every single year I always give it to the PlayStation 5. That's the system to go out and get, even though personally I play the Xbox Series X significantly more than I play my PlayStation 5. So it's just a recap because a lot has changed for both systems in the past year, pretty much where I stand. Now, as a disclaimer, this is just my opinions. It's a shame we have to say this, but it's just my opinions. Ultimately, if your friends are playing on a particular system, it doesn't make sense to go out and buy another one. If everyone that you know plays on the Xbox, go buy Xbox. If everyone you know plays on the PlayStation, go buy PlayStation. Get the system where your friends are going to be on. But ultimately, if things like that don't matter, maybe you don't really do a whole lot of online gaming or certain things like that, regardless of what you do, I'm just going to be breaking down a few different things just to think about before you go out and spend that money. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Now, like I said, a lot has changed in the past year for both consoles. More so, I feel like if anything, a lot has changed on the Xbox side. Microsoft has really been focusing on their first party content. And not only just that, they seem to be pulling back away from a lot of these live service games. When the Xbox One and into the Xbox Series systems came out, they was having a lot of live service games coming out. It seemed like every game that Microsoft was pushing out was, hey, you can play this game with all your friends, and it was really not giving you a lot of story or narrative and just leaving it up to you. You had games like State of Decay that was very strong on live service. You had games like Sea of Thieves that was very strong on live service. Even Halo, for the first time ever came out, was live service. Forza was live service. Forza still kind of is, but it's a lot better now. Even games like Redfall is a live service game. I do realize that Redfall was already in the process of being made before Microsoft bought the studio, but the fact of the matter is that was the narrative at Xbox. Very live service push. Now, their games seem to be less like that. Now, here's the thing. Microsoft is going to always have a bunch of live service games, especially now that the deal with Activision Blizzard has closed. It's because you're going to have games like Overwatch, for just example. That is a live service game. I don't see that changing. Halo is actually going in the right direction of being a live service. It's actually one of my ideal versions of what a live service game is. But ultimately, Microsoft seems to be moving away from that to a degree. You have games like Hi-Fi Rush that came out earlier this year. Phenomenal game. A lot of people loved it. You had games like Starfield that came out this year. And even though Forza is a live service, it doesn't feel like it's getting bogged down by those live service mechanics. Microsoft has also dropped a little smaller games here and there, like Grounded, for example. They dropped another game by Obsidian. I can't think of the name. I'll probably just put a video up because I can't remember what the name of the game is right now. But Microsoft has been trying to, it seems like they've been really expanding their horizon on all these different type of games, you know, that they actually make and produce. And there is, it doesn't matter what genre that you're in when it comes to Xbox. As you know, it feels like the past year, Microsoft has been producing or giving you something. And to be honest, with the deal of Activision Blizzard closing, I see more narrative focused games coming out. And what I mean by that is because Activision Blizzard has such a long history of IP. I feel like they're going to be diving more into that as the years come. So we'll see how that plays out. This is getting a little off topic, but ultimately, that's where I see Xbox going. I don't see them being heavily into live service. I see them really getting into more single player games and getting more back focused and back on track. Jumping over to the PlayStation. For the PlayStation, it's been a little weird. One thing I constantly always talk about is PlayStation has legendary exclusive titles. Like, they have really great first party games. And I'm gonna be honest with you, this year was a little, depressing when it comes to that. Now, when I say depressing, it doesn't mean that they didn't have anything come out. It's just that the first party games was just very, a few and far between. Now, keep in mind, this is just for 2023. They've had games come out before 2023, that first party games. But a lot of those games were always on PlayStation 4 as well. I think this is the first year where they're really more so focusing on just the PlayStation 5, where Spider-Man was only on the PlayStation 5, where Final Fantasy 16 was only on the PlayStation 5. Now, in reality, here's the thing. As weird as it's to say is, those are games that push systems. Like, people are going to run out and buy a PlayStation for Final Fantasy. People are going to run out and buy a PlayStation for Spider-Man. But it seems like for the first time in a long time, Sony just needs more. This year seems to be has seemed to be kind of rougher on Sony, where they've been focusing, I brought this up in a previous video, they've been focusing more on hardware and releasing hardware than actually first party games. I'm telling you, if I see one more Last of Us remake, remaster, whatever come out, you know, and I get that that's a very popular franchise, but in reality, Sony hasn't really dropped anything just new, you know. And I know it's coming. I know we have like studios like Sucker Punch. I know they're working on the next Ghost of Tsushima game coming out. I know, you know, Insomniac has other games coming out like Wolverine, for example. And then they obviously have their other studios, but it's been a little dry on the PlayStation front. I buy every PlayStation 5 exclusive game that comes out, but outside of that, I don't really use my PlayStation 5 until those exclusives come out. When they come out, that's great and I love them, but outside that, they sit. I know a very popular game that came out was Baldur's Gate 3, and that was a PlayStation 5 kind of exclusive, and it was more like a time exclusive because we was waiting for Microsoft to get their stuff together before it actually went on that system. And it's coming out, you know, it's coming out on Microsoft. So you did have the option, if you had a PlayStation 5, you got to play it back in, what was it, September? Larian said that it is coming to Xbox next month, which is December. This year should have been a little bit weird. I'm really hesitant to say that they didn't have anything to really push the system like that, because you had Spider-Man. Spider-Man was a phenomenal game. I love Final Fantasy 16. I don't know if that, to me, that's a console seller. I don't know if that was the case for everyone. I didn't really look at a lot of reviews for that game or anything like that. It just didn't seem like that was doing a lot of pushing of the system. And in reality, some of these games are going to come to PC. A bunch of Xbox games are going to come to PC. So there's always that to factor in. But ultimately, it was just a little weird because where you see Xbox, now granted, Starfield isn't on Spider-Man level, I'll just be honest with you, but you see Xbox constantly keep pushing their game content. This year, for the first time in a while, Sony just seems to have been riding on a lot of third-party support in their hardware. Every time you hear Sony's name in the news, it's either been very negative or has been about hardware coming out. That's still me getting a little off topic, but it's things that I think is kind of important. As far as the overall experience, when I sit down and play these games, I brought in my previous videos, I love the PlayStation 5 controller. In some respects, I pick it over the Xbox controller. When it comes to the headsets, I pick those over the Xbox headsets because the Xbox headsets have a lot of issues with it, and I've been waiting for them to fix it. But ultimately, hands down, the Xbox has had more value consistently, especially in this past year, than I have on the PlayStation. That comes from a lot of the services that come with it. If you buy an Xbox, you can play a lot of games without having to spend more than your subscription. On the PlayStation side, you can as well. Don't get me wrong. You do have the PlayStation Plus, you know, those 3 different tiers. I know one is like premium, and I forgot the other 2, Essentials and whatever, Core or whatever the first tier is. So you can still play a lot of games, but a lot of them are going to be older titles that's been out for a few years, where Microsoft is constantly still pushing games that not only their studios are making day one, that they release they're on the service, but they're also releasing games from third-party studios day one, releasing on the service. I think next week, actually, the new Persona game is about to come out to Game Pass. Tactics, another game that just released day one on the service, was Like a Dragon, for example. So you have all these games. There's a lot more. You know, those are just ones that just happen to just be about to release or are releasing. But there's a lot of things that Microsoft's doing. So while Sony spending a lot of its money trying to block studios and things like that, Microsoft's spending its money to make it cheaper for the consumer. So that's something you have to think about. Do you want all the money that you're putting in investing in PlayStation to be going to just blocking it from going on other systems? Or do you want your money going into Microsoft and they're putting that towards putting more games on the service, so in turn there's less that you have to pay? You know, just something to think about. So, because in reality, I'm gonna be honest, when it comes to raw power, both of these systems, I'm not gonna go do a breakdown. Oh, well, the Xbox seems to perform a little bit better. They both perform great. I had these systems for 3 years. I got them both on the day they came out. They both run extremely quiet. I use compressed air. I constantly clean my systems out. Maybe that helps it, but they both run really, really quiet. You know, the PlayStation 5 feels more futuristic when it comes to the all-around experience. The UI, the controller, the headset, they have a more futuristic feel to it. The Xbox, I'm not a big fan of the Xbox UI. It's getting better, but I still think it has a lot to improve. Their headsets, you know, definitely need to be improved, and their controllers just need a little bit more features because they've been playing it safe. And I'm using, on the Xbox, I use the Elite Series 2 controller, and as nice as that controller is, it still doesn't feel future proof at all. It feels like I'm playing a pro controller, I guess you can say, but it doesn't feel like it's anything that I'm pulling out the future like the PlayStation 5 controller is. But ultimately, you're going to get similar experiences. I know that there's things that the companies do to make certain things run better. You know, I know that the Xbox on paper is more powerful than the PlayStation 5, and in some cases, because of developers, they keep the performance of the game running about the same, because I do know the Xbox does have more power, but they keep them relatively the same, even with that being a factor. If I had to pick between one of the two systems, if I only had $500, I say this every year, if I only had $500 and I was going to the store and both systems were on the shelf and I had to pick one, I think for the first time ever, what am I going to say? And I've been choosing the PlayStation well before the systems even came out, but for the first time ever, I think I have to go with the Xbox this time. The Xbox has so much more of a value. You're going to get very similar experiences on both systems. And yes, I know the PlayStation 5 has console exclusives, and they're going to have even more. Of course they are. If those are important to you, if the console exclusives like Spider-Man, Final Fantasy, you know, games like that are important to you, then get it. Ratchet and Clank, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, Horizon. If those are important, get those. There's nothing wrong with that. Enjoy it. As far as the value of a system, which you are getting out of it, I feel personally that you're going to get more value out of an Xbox moving forward. Xbox has been closing a lot of deals, a lot of acquisitions. They just acquired Activision Blizzard, which now, you know, games like Call of Duty, which is like $70 minimum, Diablo, $70 minimum. Those are going to be pretty much free with your subscription moving forward. On PlayStation, with your subscription that they raised the prices on, none of these big games are going to be free. You're going to have to be paying $70 for each game. I'm the type of person where I play so many different games. I have bought just this past month in October, I don't even remember how many games I bought because there was so many that just kept coming out. This year, Activision has released at least 2 huge games, Call of Duty and Diablo. Now imagine if those 2 games were free for you, of course, with your subscription. You know, now maybe those games don't matter. Maybe don't care about it. And that's why I said, look at where, 1, your friends play on. What system that your friends play on? And 2, what exclusives do you care about? Now, one thing I will say about the system that your friends play on, it's not as important as that used to be either, because a lot of games now support crossplay, and you have Discord on both systems, so you can have the party chat. Even though Xbox still seems to be the king of party chat, you still have those options. So the overall experience is, unless you are a hardcore like PlayStation exclusive and that is what drives you, get that. But if you want an overall just phenomenal experience, you know, great value and price, great games, the games are great. And a lot of people, I'm not saying Starfield is game of the year. I know a lot of people's touting it's going to be game of the year. I know game of the generation, whatever. I'm not saying this was the case, but Starfield was very fun. You know, a bunch of games that every Microsoft game that came out, with the exception of Redfall, was all pretty fun. My last video like this got 34,000 views or whatever, and there was comments for days on it. Months. It was comments going back and forth months. If you don't, you know, if you prefer the PlayStation, get it. I have both systems. I love both systems. You know, I'm strictly talking to if you only have the ability to buy one, and if you bought the other, if you bought the PlayStation, then that's great. You know, I'm not saying the PlayStation is bad as in any stretch of the imagination. I've been consistently saying the PlayStation 5 has been a better system for years, and it's really mostly because of their exclusives. But their exclusives haven't been doing enough for me personally. To be honest, Ragnarok was a dud for me. I didn't really care that much about it, and Horizon was a super dud. I did not enjoy that game at all. So for me, the exclusives on the PlayStation side haven't really been doing anything. Godfall was blah. Destruction All-Stars didn't care about. Returnal was kind of meh. I know a lot of people loved it. I wasn't that person that really loved it. So personally, so to get my understanding from me, there hasn't been a lot of heavy PlayStation 5 exclusive games that I'm just like, oh, this is a must buy. Ratchet and Clank, I love that game. The Spider-Man game, love that game. Final Fantasy games, love those games. But again, you know, are those console pushers for me? I don't know. For me, I would go out and buy them for those systems, but if I had to pick between the two, I would still be on the Xbox at the end of the day. So that's just my opinion. That's my thought. this year, for the first time in like 4 years, because I've been talking about these two systems before they even came out, I have to give it to the Xbox, mostly just because of the value of the system. It's just significantly better, in my opinion, than the PlayStation. That's being held up by the services. With the Activision Blizzard deal closing out, I feel like the value in 2024 is going to be even that much higher. Now, Microsoft may raise their prices, and we'll have to see what happens, and we'll have to see how that works out because of that Activision Blizzard deal. But ultimately, you know, it's a great system. You guys are going to love either one. It's about just having fun and enjoying it. But anyway, what do you guys think? What is your system? Which one do you pick? Comment all that down below. I'm very curious to see what you guys feel. Like, what is your favorite system? You know, it doesn't matter what system that I really pick at the end of the day. There's a lot of comments I see where people are like, oh, thanks for giving me something to think about. And that's my whole point. It's not to bash one and, you know, this one's better than the other. I'm not trying to move on with the console wars or anything. It's just to give you guys a thought process when you are spending money, because even though this may not affect everyone watching this video, a lot of people only have the money for one or the other. So I'm just giving you a thought process of what to think about when you're walking into Best Buy or Walmart or wherever to pick up your system. So I hope that was helpful. I hope I made sense with that. But comment all that down below. Also follow me on, you know, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. I have all that down below. Subscribe to the channel, and thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video. See ya.